Campaign 2024 heating up in a field that has been mostly static in the polls. One candidate has shown some movement in recent weeks. What is her message for America, and can she go all the way? Let's welcome in former South Carolina governor and former United States ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley. Governor, thank you so much for making time for us today. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
So, Governor, we've all seen the polls. You have too. Donald Trump wants people to believe that this is all wrapped up. What do you say to voters out in Iowa or New Hampshire, other places, who think this primary is over before it started?
Well, we're in Iowa now. We're in Des Moines. I was there yesterday driving a combine, and today we had a town hall. We had hundreds of people at a town hall yesterday. You can't see that on the ground. There are a lot of people showing up. There are a lot of people interested in a new generational leader. We feel the momentum. We've felt it since the debate. You know, the phones haven't stopped ringing. We've got people going to NikkiHaley.com to contribute. But at the end of the day, people want a government that works for them, and they're tired of working for government. They want to know that we're going to do something to actually bring inflation down, that we're going to fix crime, that we're going to bring transparency in the classroom, that we're going to close our borders, and that we're going to have national security. And so I think we're just getting started, and I think that we're feeling good momentum, and we're just going to continue.
Some interesting numbers out of Quinnipiac, a polling firm, this week shows that some 48% of GOP voters are actually open to changing their minds on their choice for president. And majorities polled seem to be very concerned about President Trump's legal issues. I've talked to Republicans in Iowa and New Hampshire. They want to win next November. Do you believe that despite a strong base of support, that the former president will have significant trouble winning a general election next year?
Well, look, I think President Trump was the right president at the right time. But I don't think he's the right president going forward. I agree with a lot of the policies that he did. But we really need to focus on the fact that we cannot have a President Kamala Harris, because our country won't survive it. So we have to have a candidate that can win a general election. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. We have to start going forward. We've got to leave the negativity in the past behind us, and we have to focus on who can win in a general election. And I think that's what we're hearing a lot of people talk about in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, is they don't want a President Kamala Harris, and they want to know that there's someone that can go in there and win the general. And I'm going to do that.
Governor, a quick follow-up on that. So you believe that Joe Biden will not be the Democrat nominee in 2024?
I think you look at him now. I think that he's going to run the race because they think that he can beat everybody else, although the CNN poll came out and said I was the only one that could beat him, and I could beat him by 6 points. But look, they're running it so they can put Kamala in. No one in their right mind thinks that Joe Biden is going to serve out this next term. I think he's going to run this race because they think he can win, and I think Kamala Harris is going in, and that should send a chill up everyone's spine. Former
President Trump sat down recently for a one-on-one interview with Megyn Kelly. He was asked point blank if a man can become a woman. Here was his response. Watch.
Can a man become a woman?
In my opinion, you have a man, you have a woman. I think part of it is birth. Can the man give birth? No.
Governor, a lot of folks online were confused by his hesitation there. You've been a champion for women's rights. Was the former president's answer an adequate response to that question, in your view?
Look, I mean, I'll let him respond the way he wants to, but I'll tell you, look at what Johns Hopkins University, they just defined a woman. And do you know what it was? It was a non-man. They are trying to erase women. You cannot erase women. You cannot put biological boys in girls' sports. We know the difference between a man and a woman. Our children know the difference between girls and boys. If an adult decides to transition later in life, that is up to them. It's a free country. They can do what they want. But at the end of the day, there are 2 genders. We know that. There's a girl, there's a boy, there's a man, there's a woman. And no matter what any university or anyone wants to call us, you know, women aren't going anywhere. We're there. We know exactly who we are. We know exactly what we can do. And all of this chaos is nothing more than just ridiculousness.
But Governor, but yes or no, were you surprised that he couldn't answer the question directly?
I guess he got confused. I don't know. I don't know what his thought process was. I can, always talk about mine, but I'm not going to try and talk about his.
Okay. Washington governor bracing for a showdown over spending that could force what they call a government shutdown. We know it's not really a government shutdown. The government still functions. But you've been a governor. You've had to manage a budget. You've had to deal with the legislature. If you were the president right now, how would you handle the president's standoff? And what would your message be to members of your party in Congress?
This is infuriating. I mean, we are $32 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. Biden has sent us down the spiral of socialism, but our Republicans have done this too. I would get them in a room and say, you have to figure this out. You've got a group of Republicans that are saying we're not going to pass a budget until you cut spending. Why aren't we cutting spending? Why can't we do that? All of your viewers have to balance a budget. I had to balance a budget as governor. It is time that Congress learned to balance a budget. It's why I've said we'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the earmarks that Republicans opened back up, and I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. We don't need to be passing budgets where we say, okay, we did this last year, now let's add to it. Let's go from the bottom up and say, what do we have to have? And start from zero up. We've got to change the focus of Washington. They're spending like drunken sailors, and the taxpayers are tired of it.
Yeah, people are tired of it. And in my exit question to you, I want to talk about the economy. And here's President Biden from earlier this week talking about who Bidenomics is supposedly helping. Watch.
We've seen record lows in unemployment, particularly, and I've focused on this my whole career, particularly for African Americans and Hispanic workers and veterans. Workers without high school diplomas.
It's kind of a curious answer there. Governor, people don't seem to be that concerned about job security, but they are very concerned about consumer prices, inflation, and their personal budgets. What do you tell people when they approach you with that on the campaign trail?
Look, I mean, Bidenomics, Biden can say whatever he wants about Bidenomics. We feel it when we go into the grocery store. We feel it when we fill up our tank with gas. We feel it with the high cost of rent and the fact that interest rates have gone up and you can't afford a home. We know inflation is real, but it's not just what I say, it's what the Census Bureau said. The Census Bureau came out and said that Americans are poorer now than they were before Bidenomics. That's why I'm coming out with an economic plan next week. And one of the items in that plan is the fact that we are going to make sure that we eliminate all of the federal gas tax in this country. We're going to put that money back into the pockets of the taxpayers. We're going to try and reduce inflation by making sure we're not energy independent, but we're energy dominant. We're going to stop the spending, and we're going to come out with another list of plans on how we're going to move all of the functions from the federal government down to the states so that we can reduce the size of the federal government and empower the people in the states. We're going to get our budget back on track. That's why we need an accountant in the White House.
All right, and we're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately, but we are going to continue to follow along with the progress of your campaign. 2024 GOP presidential candidate Governor Nikki Haley, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thanks. Go to NikkiHaley.com and join our fight.